So Friday night, everybody walked out of there with the running Android application, right? Yeah, that was pretty great. Doug, you got yours running, right? Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Victory! But in addition to that, we also played around with something called Spring, and something specifically called Spring Boot, which has only been released in the past, like, 3 weeks. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to write Java applications that do not suck really bad. I mean, this is becoming the new de facto, guys. In fact, it uses something just called, Keegan, what's it called, man? Convention over... What? What did you say? Convention over configuration. It's essentially a very, very opinionated framework that says, hey, you should do everything this way because it's the right way to do it. If you do it this way, we're just going to set up your entire project for you. In fact, we're going to download all the dependencies for you. We're going to we're going to configure all the Spring Beans for you. In fact, the only thing that you have to do in order to get a running Java server is include this line of code in your Java application. This just starts up the Spring application, the Spring context. And when we press go, actually let's do that right now. When we press go, it's actually going to launch. Quiet on stage. Right there. When we click run right here, it's actually going to launch itself in an embedded Tomcat or Jetty server. That means you don't have to have Tomcat installed, you don't have to have Jetty installed, and you don't have to package it up into this really weird thing called a WAR, a web archive file. So in order to build something that you can put out on the internet, Java wants you to put in a WAR file, which has a very specific file format. And it's just a zip file, but it's really specific. And so this, you just press go, and now on port 8085, I have a running Java server. Wow. Like, it's that easy. I mean, anybody who's worked with Java before knows that usually does not happen that quickly or that fast. So, in addition to using Spring Boot, there's a library called Spring MVC. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to associate methods that should get called with each directory, web directory. So, you know, in PHP, you could say /cat to get called a certain method. We can do the same thing in Java, and it's really, really easy to do. So, for example, we just make this class called a controller. Now, we don't have to like say new on this controller. Spring just go ahead and it makes this controller for us. And it puts it into our application by saying @rest controller. Now we can just put these little magic annotations onto our methods. And now we can say, hey, whenever I go to just the root directory on our web page, I want to say, welcome to spellchecker.com. So now we can have all these callbacks that get associated with whatever web address that we want to do. And you know, typically in lower level languages or frameworks, you might actually have to parse a lot of this stuff out. Like, what if you said, I want to send them to words, anything /words. Well, now it's real easy. I can just say, hey, anything /words, I want to return a list of all my words. Nice, great. And you can even get more specific. You can keep nesting them. So maybe word /polymorphic. Now this is a RESTful interface, guys, because every single piece of data has its own URL. Words returns the entire list. Polymorphic returns just the specific item. But, you know, this is not really going to work for us because we're going to have to define a method. Is that big enough, guys? Can you see it? Yes. We're going to have to define a method for every single path that we want to go to. And in the long run, that's not dry. We're going to be repeating ourselves quite a bit. So how can we make this dynamic? Well, what if we say words, and then we put these little funny brackets around words. Now we can make it into a variable. So, whenever you go to words /inheritance /polymorphic /apples /carrots /bananas, whatever you want, word /anything, It's going to take whatever was after that slash and make it into a path variable and make it into this Java variable right here. Which is really nice, right? Because now you can start creating a RESTful interface, and where they go to certain URLs, you can do very specific things. But it gets better than that as well. What if you want to include, oh, and you'll notice that I keep commenting these out as I go down the line. The reason why I do that is that you have to make sure that each mapping can only refer back to one method. So if we had a mapping that mapped like a mapping can't go two different places. It can only go to one method. And so like right here, it might get confused because it would be like if I had both of these uncommented, it would actually throw an error whenever I try to run the app. It would say, hey, I don't know which one you're trying to go to because these two paths are pretty much the same. But moving down the line, in RESTful interfaces, oftentimes you'll want to specify a parameter. And oftentimes, like if you're looking through the entire set of words, you're just going to give it an optional parameter right here called rhymes with. You could be like rhymes with orange, or rhymes with orphic, or polymorphic. And now we can pass that directly into our method, just like before. And it just parses it right off the URL. It does all the URL parsing for us, which makes things really, really simple. And finally, one last thing, actually two last things. Perhaps you realize that there's a situation in which you need to throw an error in your application. And it might even be an error that you expect to happen. For example, if they're looking for an item that's not in your database, what do you do? Well, you need to throw an error to tell them that it's not there. And you'd usually want to direct them to a different page and be like, hey, we didn't find what you were looking for. Or you want to give them a specific HTTP code that would say 404 not found. So by adding this annotation to a method, exception handler, we can say anytime that this exception gets thrown, just go ahead and call this method. So now we don't have to put try statements around every single one of our methods, because that would not be dry. That would not be dry. We can't do that on every single one. So we can just create a generic way to handle all of our exceptions that come up within our application. And finally, these examples so far have been really, really simplistic. In fact, most of the time you're not just going to be passing back and forth a string, you're going to be passing back JSON. And one of the most challenging things about making a RESTful interface is how do you get that JSON, how do you get that XML, that list, that string, and turn it into an object? And how do you turn that object into a string? Well, Java Spring MVC has this framework library called Jackson, and it does it all for you. All you have to do is say @response_body and @request_body. And so just by saying this, it's going to know that anything that whenever we make a post, it's going to know anything that comes in. We're going to try and take that string and match it up with what's in this class. And this class is just really simple. It's just a name and a type. And let's actually look at this real quick. So first of all, you guys may want to use an application like Postman. Okay, so with RESTful interfaces, remember I talked about how there's human-readable content and machine-readable content? And human-readable content comes across the wire as .html, but, and it's actually going to be a header within HTTP. If we want, like, just JSON, we have to set the HTTP header to be just JSON. So you can use an application Spring plugin called Postman, and what it'll do is it'll It will make it real easy to post. It will make it real easy to get and to use the proper headers. And so now you can see that if I go to localhost.com/beers, I get this JSON back. And this JSON is simply this Java object right here being turned into a JSON string. And we can go the other direction with this as well. If I just go ahead and copy this. And let's see, I want to change this to a post. And I want, goodness, is that big enough, guys? Sorry. And it's good. So now I can actually post this back. Oh, no support media tag. I probably should have tested that before I came up here.
You know that's supposed to
It probably is. All right, but yeah, that's how you do these object into JSON, object into XML transformations. Is that you can use Jackson using Spring Boot and Spring MVC, and it makes it all really, really easy. And that's why you guys should use Java instead of this Ruby stuff and this. What's the other one?
Oh, sales.
Sales, yeah. Over sales. That's mine.
Battery's about to die.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
That's why I gotta be off stage. Alright. Thank you guys. Here comes Ricky. Ricky and Chris. They're gonna tell you about Ruby on Rails.
How many people are using Ruby for the project? Awesome. Hey, we have people. That's good. How do you guys like it so far?
I like it, yeah.
Like it also? Yeah. That's
I'd like to learn it.
Well, we're gonna do something about that really quickly then. Come on, computer. Remember that rule about how your computer always breaks when you come up here? Oh, I don't even really need slides yet. Okay, let's start off. What do you guys know about Ruby?
Nothing.
Nothing. Nada. Zilch.
Wow, okay.
It's a dynamic open source programming language. Focus on
Awesome, so let me read the slide. Okay, so you'll probably hear these terms being thrown around a lot, so let's start off by defining them for you guys. Dynamic, in this case, stands for dynamically typed. This means not like C, where you have to declare the type of all variables before you use them. This is more like JavaScript, where you kind of just throw everything into bars. In Ruby land, if I can find a terminal to open, let's do. Bigger. In Ruby land, we just do something like that is it. Name now exists. You don't even need var. You don't need anything. This exists within the scope. Let's go on with next thing, open source. You guys probably don't really care. Some of you guys might. Open source just means that this is controlled by a committee led by Mats, who is the original creator of the language. And it means that if you have a major complaint, this language is perfect except for this one feature, and you're determined to get it changed, you could probably get involved in the community and exert your willpower over them, if you're really determined. This also means that one of the cool things about Ruby is that as it's evolved, you guys have probably heard of Ruby on Rails, which we'll talk about soon. One of the cool things about Ruby is that Rails has influenced how Ruby has become developed. Rails has run into problems. complications. It's like, hey, Ruby guys, we keep running into this silly little thing. Can we fix it? And thus, Ruby has evolved. Python has a very similar kind of equal structure where it's ruled by committee. Java is mostly now, it's owned by Oracle? It's owned by Oracle, but it's done by committee also. Okay, they have a pseudo committee.
Boo, Oracle, boo.
But okay. Did you guys hear? Java is kind of like Russia, he says. Moving on. So yeah, for simplicity and productivity, one of the big motivations of why Nats, the creator of Ruby, designed Ruby was he was tired of C and C++ and all the extra words you have to put in there and all the craziness. And a big one is that it should be easy to read and write. And since I am going just about Ruby, let's... This is really weird typing while looking behind you. Okay. I just wanted to go, since we were talking about descriptions about languages, I wanted to point out that if you ever are wondering about language, you can always look it up on Wikipedia, and they have this cool little section called paradigms. You guys have all heard about object-oriented. And this is just a way to help you grasp what the language was designed for. In this case, multi-paradigm just means that you don't have to use objects. Reflective means that you can always look into itself. It's kind of a meta thing, so the best way to show this is with an example. Where's my damn cursor? Sorry. It's not mirroring, it's kind of weird right now. There we go. So if you guys remember from one of my previous talk about the fact that there are interpreters that you can run on the command line, Ruby is no exception. So I could run my previous example of, and now when I ask it to what name is, it says it. But this is also cool because the reflective thing I was just talking about means that you can always ask any object in Ruby what it knows, which is kind of cool. Like, hey, name, what methods do you have?
Wow.
It has a lot of methods. But this brings up another cool thing about Ruby, which inherits from Smalltalk, and that is that everything in Ruby is an object. There are no primitives. You will not have awkward situations where, let's see if I can, I don't want my cursor all the way down there. Cursor, come back up a little bit. CLS. Aha, okay. Everything's an object, so name, or, so one dot. Did you see that? One has method, you can ask it. Any object has stuff in it. This also means that everything has a toString method, which is kind of cool because you can do, like, you can basically print anything you want, ever, including object. You can put, I don't know, like everything exists in there, which is kind of cool. But let's actually go through some of the basics of it. I'm going to cheat and actually go through the quick examples in Wikipedia. Okay. So let's go with back to names. So before I forget, puts, it stands for put string. It prints a string to a string. You can also do p, which stands for print, and it does not automatically convert to a string. So the difference you see is what it actually returns in this case. And if you have a complex object, p will show you the inner structure. And I'll show that to you guys really soon. But starting off with string, what's something we did in encryption that was really hard to see? Reversing the string was kind of painful, right? So let's go with, what's my name? Hey, what's my name in reverse? What's my name in, what's the second? Huh? Oh, hey, let's see what the reverse of the name is. What's the, I don't know, what's the 2 characters starting from the second one? Okay, that's right. Yeah. So, strings in Ruby, a lot easier to work with. Ruby inherited the functionality of strings from Perl. If any of you guys know of Perl, Perl was designed to replace shell scripting in a way. It was designed to make it a lot easier for you to work with text files in Linux. Ruby? And Ruby inherited much of the ease of doing that kind of stuff. Let's see, what else is kind of cool? Oh, this is one of my pet peeves, which is that in C, you have to do something like, you have to call length on name, right? The method belongs to the object now. That just makes me slightly happy just because it makes it really consistent across the board. But, oh yeah, was another thing we did was capitalization, right? So, like that. Upcase. They call it upcase and downcase in this language. Just have capitalized in.
So if you do capitalize, always is the first one.
Yeah, capitalize. Yeah. Yep. So that's really cool. Conversions are really nice. Ever wanted to convert your string to an array? Okay, well, in C they're the same thing, but let's pretend it's not. In like Java, you might run into issues with this, but you just, whoops. Is it not 2R? 2R. Is it 2R?
Array.
2 array. Man, I'm lying. Ruby string to array. You'd think I'd remember this stuff by now. Apparently, I am lying because you don't need to do that. That's where I was getting to. Remember how you have to convert it into an array to iterate over each of the characters? You can just do .each. My character. I don't know. C dot upcase. Let's print that. I don't know why you would ever want to do this. Dang it! Really? I am. Here's the trick. That would. I swear it's in there.
Each character.
Oh, is it each character?
Each char.
Underscore char? You guys see that in there?
Yeah.
Good job. Oh, there we go.
Wow.
It makes life really simple. And now that we're in array land, the other cool thing about Ruby is that, you know all those data structures, like tries and stuff? Well, they're great to know. In Ruby, they all kind of fall into, where's my cursor again? Sorry, my cursor likes to disappear. Okay, in Ruby land, most things either go into an array or a hash. You have any collection of things that's not key value, they go into an array. They are key value pairs, they go into a hash. And the reason why this can happen is because of all the things that array gives you. Like, do you remember in C how arrays don't really give you much of anything? Here we can do permutations. So this is the syntax of an array in permutation. Oh, it actually returns an iterator. How did I not return an iterator? I'm sorry, that was unexpected. In case you're wondering, I'm looking at the docs. This is another reason why I really like Ruby, is their docs are actually quite good. But yes, while we're on array, these are other methods you get. So you get to compact, you get combinations, you get to do a binary search on it, you get a cycle. Oh, I forgot to pass an annotation. Damn it. Okay, I give up on that one. The example's right there. Oh, I was supposed to run 2A on it. There we go. I believe we had to do permutations in, was it encryption or something? We were doing permutations. You get permutations for free. But this is the magic of the arrays in Ruby. And likewise, hashes in Perl are extremely powerful. They're actually so powerful that some people believe it is destroying Ruby programmers because they no longer know which data structure to use. And in Ruby, we can just do, I don't know. They look just like hashes in JavaScript. Oh, it's there. I can do colon. What's my inner animal? I'm a rabbit. I was born in '87, and that returns it. Other syntaxes for hashes in Ruby. Dang it! I thought is it not a comment between when I use hashes or colons? There's like I said earlier about how Rails has influenced Ruby. One of the influence was that Ruby now takes JSON style hashes so that the Rails guy didn't have to convert it back and forth all the time. But yes, hash just lets me access my name, so forth. It's your standard hash. But what's cool about the hashes here is all the magic it provides. Does it not fit on the dang screen?
It doesn't.
It does not fit on the dang screen. Yes. So it does, oh, what's something that was complicated to do in one of our assignments? I mean, each pair is pretty convenient. It iterates over key values. In order, by the way. Hashes in Ruby are ordered. When you do each pair. Unless they added, yes.
So is it a hash linked or linked hashes?
Yes, that is also a try that is also optimized for research retrieval.
So it's a PHP.
Shush you. Yeah, so I can walk through each key, each pair, printing things out. And why this is kind of convenient because in some other languages to retain an ordered list, you have to create an array, and you have to create a second array, and you have to do this kind of walkthrough thing, right? We all have to do that in the Cypher assignment, I believe. We have to do that. So that's really cool. What's also really cool? Another really cool thing is I can reject things.
Can you make your terminal window thinner and put it up higher because your podium is blocking the bottom part?
Dang, podium, always getting in my way.
Thank you.
Ruby also inherited a lot of the filtering methodology of Perl. So I can do something like we're not going to regex. Oh, no, I won't go into that. That's too complicated. Is there anything else you want to see me do with these hashes that are magical? I'm kind of out of ideas, actually. And then this can lead into Rails.
Frozen.
Oh, Frozen. Frozen is actually not that cool. Yeah, Frozen is Ruby's answer to locking an object from being edited. It makes it read-only theoretically, except given that you have access to all methods, and there's no such thing as private, you can always unlock it.
So it's kind of like final, but it sucks.
Yes, it's like a bad final. Anything else?
How would you pluck an object key value out of that hashes? Does that hash contain other hashes below it?
So if we're in a land of hashes of hashes of hashes.
I'd like to pluck like the name of something below.
Yeah. Something like.
Yeah.
What if you didn't know it was Ricky?
Is this one technically correct? I think that is.
It looks correct.
Users. Okay.
So what does Ruby give us for MySQL kind of interaction?
SQL interaction?
MySQL.
Oh, that's a whole can of worms that Chris will get into. So.
Can you just say pluck?
There used to be. Did I type that wrong? Oh, I'm supposed to go with name. Was my structure? I can't figure out how to get my screen to duplicate, so this turning around thing is really confusing.
Will that podium stand?
It will, but I'm about done. Damn it. Okay, let's go back up to users equals first level is name. So if I do name. I wonder if nope, that was on first again. Yeah.
Now, if I wanted to get a list of all the names that were defined in
Oh, now okay. So let's go back to users and let's make a second one, right? Or
not to drag this out too much for you.
Let's call this admin, I guess. Let's call this Kion, because I can't. And then let's just do first. So that's all we care about. Is Mike. Let's make it make
Hey, I'm not sleeping anymore. I can see that.
And then we. Okay, before I do this, I should really see if that method exists. Otherwise, it's going to be really short example. Yes, there is a collect. Okay, I am calling method collect. I'm passing in a block, which is kind of like an anomalous function. It makes it. That says that my block takes in a key value pair. Since I'm a key value pair, I'm going to do the value and first, I believe is what I'm looking for.
Yep.
Yes. There you go. Let's see. You do that one line and see. But yeah, so Ruby's arrays and hashes provide you the map reduce style functionality and collect. So map is I want to enact an action over all elements in your collection. Reduce means I want to, with a starting state, use an action on each element and collect it into a single value. So something like adding things up. And it also has collect or reject, which allows you to iterate over it to either choose what you want to keep, how you want to keep it, or what things you want to delete from it. So really powerful, really fun, and it makes life a lot easier when you want to just parse a simple text file. You read the file in, you split it on the tab character, you keep only lines that have Bob in them. It's kind of nice. And now I believe I'm handing it off. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you're a math person.
Hey guys.
So to start, you might have heard of Rails. In St. Louis, it's actually a really small community, surprisingly. And the best thing I can say about it is that my job right now is to program in Rails all day, and at least 2 to 3 times a week, you can find me in a coffee shop somewhere doing Rails after work. And that's the best thing I can say about it, is that it's fun. It's like a fun thing to do, and I enjoy doing it. And so with this talk, I didn't realize I could have a computer, so I'm going to cut in half what I was going to do. My goals for it are, if somebody asks you what Rails is, like if a friend asks you, hey, what's Rails? You can give them a good answer. And that I'm going to give you guys kind of an overview and enough information that when you're choosing what you want to build your project in, or doing something like that, you can make kind of an informed choice. And so what makes Rails kind of different is that, or why you should choose it for your project, is like Ruby, all of it's free, completely open source. It's not like sexy anymore, and that it's been used so much and so widely that it's a proven code base. The other thing is that it lets you really rapidly develop things, like really quick compared to Java, like where I came from. And so, the other thing is that the actual framework inside of it, it's MVC, Model View Controller, but the way that they do it is similar enough between applications that say you do it one way in yours, you can jump into somebody else's, see a different style how they do it, but it'll still make sense. It's like very readable, very decipherable. And then the last thing is that Rails really favors convention over configuration. And so some people like it, some people don't. What that means is that Rails as a framework has an opinion about how you should do things. And really what that means specifically is that a developer would run into the same problem again and again and again. So everybody got together and decided, we're going to do it this way, and this is the best way. And so what they did was automate that happening that particular way. And so if you want to do it that way, it's fantastic. But if you don't, it's like super complicated to jump in and try and change it. So regardless of...
You need to get that guy.
And so then, personally, my experience with it is that there's a really high initial learning curve because it's an entire web application in and of itself. And that I've never tried doing it. I have a Windows computer at home. I've never tried running it on there. I dual booted Linux as soon as I got Rails because everything I heard about it said it's really hard to run on Windows. So that might be a consideration if you have a Windows computer. And so kind of what I want to end on, and what I'm going to demonstrate, is if your friend asks you what Ruby on Rails is, it's a framework. I like this metaphor. Ruby on Rails is for web developers what a machine that would install toilets is for plumbers. It'll just do everything for you, but you have to know how to configure it. And so then, before I jump in and actually show you something, kind of to help the cause, there's actually an edX course named Software as a Service that started last Friday. I took that course actually like a long time ago and had no idea what I was doing in it. But as I went back and looked at it as I learned other things, it's a good course. It'll teach you relevant things. I actually went back to it to like learn some things for my job. The other thing, say what?
What was it called again?
It's called Software as a Service. You could just look it up.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah, hey.
Yeah, it was kind of featured one.
Yep. That one. Next thing is that there's a meetup named ArcTrails that happens over at Nebula Co-working. We're having one next week, and if you're kind of interested in Rails, I know specifically they're going to be going through everybody. One guy who kind of like randomly appeared, he's named Kai, he is going to go through, like he wanted to learn Rails, so he went through and like went through all the resources online and went through everything. So he put together this really cool presentation where he'll like flash up the resource that he used, say how it helped him or how it didn't help him, how much it cost him, and then go through those. Because he went through pretty much everything. And then he ended up kind of hanging out with our little Rails crowd. And then final takeaway is if you have a project and you're doing it in Ruby or in Rails, either way, let me know. I want to help. There's like 5 of us in St. Louis that I know of. I didn't know Ricky existed, which is awesome.
I'm proud of myself.
Okay, can you guys, how do I make this bigger? That makes a screen.
Can we sign up right now
For art trails?
for wanting your help?
Oh, let's do this.
You only have so much bandwidth. Better get them quick.
So my email is that. Can you see that?
No.
Okay, so I need to make it bigger. How do I make this bigger?
Control Shift Plus.
Alt Shift Plus.
Oh, freaking Max.
That's my email. Send me what your project is, what you'd like to do, and what troubles you're running into, and I can point you towards the right resources. And so, get going. The way you start a Rails project is you type Rails new and then the name of your project. And so my default at this point is pretty much, I guess, an ad-lib generator. And it'll just make a bunch of stuff for you. And then it'll run bundle install, which I'll get to in a second. But it's really cool. And so, I don't know how much you guys have gone into databases and stuff, but what Rails does, especially for either SQL or Mongo, they have this thing called active record, which is just a bunch of functionality that gives you that Ruby syntax you just saw, but it lets you do stuff with the database, and it'll generate all the SQL calls for you. So basically, you shouldn't be using SQL when you're using Ruby, because you're probably going to mess it up at some point. And the point of the active record is so that you don't have to use SQL, so those mess ups don't happen. And that in cases where they might, you know exactly where and how they're likely going to happen. And so, Rails G model. So we're going to make a model named entry, and each entry is going to have a word with a. And so the reason earlier that wasn't working is because I wasn't in the right directory. So Rails G model entry, and then we give each entry a word, and the type of word is a string. And so that created a migration. And a migration is just a bunch of things that you want to do with your database. And migrations are cool because you can make a migration, and then you can take it away, you can put it back in there, you can do whatever you want. And so as long as you keep your migrations kind of sacred across Git and all the different people that will be touching it, you can have a completely dynamically generated database that you can share with everybody relatively instantly. To get to how this is rapid, you can type in localhost. Oh, I'm not running Rails. Yes. You can type localhost 3000, and it's already working. There's already stuff there. This is just the default page that happens when you start your app. And so, so this is kind of where I was completely unprepared. So I guess we're doing an ad-lib generator. So we've got an entry that can hold a word. So we need a way to add entries. And the way that we'd want to do that is by scaffold entry. Create entries. Is that the right way?
I don't see avoid the generate model. I just scaffold it directly.
Oh, okay.
Because scaffold actually creates a migration for you also.
Okay, well then let's do a new one. Let's just call it word. And that built a bunch of stuff. And so this is one of the things where, oh yeah, it's convention over configuration. It just made a bunch of assumptions about what you wanted out of Word. And one of those assumptions is that you'd want to create new words, you'd want to destroy current words, and you'd want the ability to edit and update also current words. There it goes. So So root 2 words of this is just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. And so since I can't really show you guys this, what you're telling it is that words path. No, that doesn't work. So here, it's already generated all this for you. If I want to create a new word, oh, hey, it just made a new word, so it creates a lot of stuff for you. What did it even make? I didn't put in any attributes on the words, did I?
Oh, yeah, you did, did you?
Yeah,
It was a blank model.
yeah. So, I'll do it over here. I forgot to add anything to words so I could do anything with them.
Yeah.
And the way that I would fix this is I would generate a migration, which is just I'm doing something with a database, and then I'm going to tell it add content to word. And then I tell it what kind of content, so I'm going to just call it content and tell it as a type of string. I'm going to tell it this migration to go do that. Yeah. So there, now it's in words. And now I need to start server.
Oh.
So we can test this.
Yes, we shall. Yay for being able to test things live.
So word dot first. There it is. So we're going to say word equals word dot first. Word dot content equals nil. So we're going to say word dot content equals Ricky, and also tell it to save. So now when we check it, word dot first. Where's content? Ricky? Back. Oh. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to start this over here. So I can stop switching between my screen. Back. So since we generated all the scaffolds and we didn't have that attribute there, let's go in. So that was the model, and the model sits on top of the database. And the way I kind of think of Rails, you can think of it, this might sound weird, but thinking in pictures is actually much more helpful for thinking about code than thinking in words. Because the human brain can only retain, on average, between, I think it was 5 to 9 things, so plus 2 to 7. And if you have more than that, then you just can't remember it. It won't stay in there. And the thing that's awesome about pictures is that a picture can contain so much more information than words that it's actually really, really useful to kind of, when you're programming something, map it out by concept and build a picture of it. So the way I think about Rails is vertically. And there's like the database on the bottom, then there's a model, then there's a controller, then there's the views, and then there's everything else that happens. And so we set up the bottom part, we set up the next part, the model, and so now we need to go to the controller. And what the controller does is it talks with the model and says, hey, I want certain things. And the purpose of the controller is kind of like a bouncer. So when users from the view part come in and ask for stuff, like say, hey, give me a word, the controller will be the one who will be like, is this okay? Can this happen? And if it can happen, then it'll go get it. So, here's the words controller. Index words equals word all. So let's go to word index. And so this is in the view. Right here it says at words, and what this is in the words controller, you can see this thing named index. And in the controller, the thing is actually defined as index. That's the name of the action. And so when Rails gets a command named whatever slash index, what did I do? Oh yeah, I didn't say word content. So when it gets the name of this is a convention thing, and so hopefully I don't confuse you guys. If this doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about remembering it, don't waste your brain on this. But since the table name is words, yeah, I think it's words, that Rails automatically generates a bunch of stuff for you, including names of all the different things that it automatically generates. So in this case, if you want an index of a specific thing, you just say that thing plural, and it'll think, oh, they want to look at all those things. And so it's just like a bunch of assumptions that are made. And so right here, index is that thing where it's words. And so when I go to index, up on the view, I'm telling it, hey, I want to see all the words. And so then the controller goes, is that okay? And if it's okay, then it goes down and it asks the model, give me all the words. And so right now, that's what's happening right here, is it says words equals word.all. And that generates the query that pulls all the words out of the database, makes them into programming objects so that you can then go do stuff with them. And so what we're going to do is in the index, here it made this nice table for us. And I'm going to tell it, right here, it grabs all those words, it's at words.each do word, and so that means that's the thing that Ricky just showed, where it iterates through that entire thing, and what it's iterating through is that big collection of stuff that we pulled out of the database. So for each one of those, we do this block of code, and then that's also formatted in HTML, and this other thing called ERB, which is how Ruby and HTML coexist. And so here, I'm telling it, for every word, put the content of that word on the page. And so, there, we have Ricky. And now if we want to edit, there's actually no. This page is also automatically generated, and it's named edit. And we did not include, this will probably be the end of it, because I probably overloaded you guys. But say, since I forgot to generate all the stuff automatically with the content thing on the model, if I say f.text field, it'll generate the HTML form and tell it that I want it to be for content. And so now, yeah, there we go. It'll automatically pull out the content that was in the database and let me update it. So if I want to make this Ricky NG, word update forbidden attributes. So here's where the controller is saying you may or may not do something. Params word. So this is just some syntactical shit, isn't it? Like params. Oh, sorry. Params dot require permit. Permit, and then we're permitting a word dot require, and we can say I think it might need to be best in like that content. I'm not entirely sure. Nope, not at all. Okay, I'm going to cheat. Here we go, params not required. Yeah, okay, it doesn't have to be. So, was I messing? Yeah, I was messing with the word. And now I want to also mess with content. Hey, there we go. Now I just told the controller that it's okay for the user to edit that particular attribute. And one of the things that you want to be careful of that I can't go into because it's contextual, but a lot of stuff, users can type in a lot of stuff that could do a lot of bad things to your program, and Rails makes it extremely simple for you to prevent users from messing with your app. And yeah, it doesn't let you by default, and that's one of the things I'm talking about, is you have to explicitly tell it to let this thing in. And when the act of doing that makes you think, how could this ruin what I'm doing? Like, how could a malevolent user come in and tell it the SQL command to drop the database table, or whatever? Okay. So the big takeaways are that Rails will build your toilet for, Rails is for plumbers what a toilet installing machine Never mind. Thank you guys.
Alright guys, how you doing? Tired yet?
Yes.
Feeling a little bit overloaded yet?
Yes.
Awesome, I'm gonna show you some more stuff. Let's see, I wanna be done with 5 minutes for questions, so if you can stop me in 10 minutes, anybody, that'd be great. Also, I don't know any of this, so I'm gonna learn it while I teach you. Alright, so.
Hands on.
Yeah. So, what I'm talking about here, this is Sails, which is like Rails, except it's in Node.js, so it's better. Just like he said, Ruby, Rails, it's a toilet. So we want to get started with Sails. So they have this wonderful getting started guide. So let's say we want to create a new app. And this is just salesjs.org. So we're going to say Sails new, and I'm calling this Salem. I'm calling this. So boom, now I have a new app, and put in all this stuff. What's up? So we created a new project. Now it says we can just start it by saying Sails lift. And it's running. I'm on port elite. So here we go. So now we've got this running. So we want to get our API going. And you may notice this looks like a lot like Rails because that's kind of what it's like. So we're going to go ahead and generate a controller. And we're going to kill that. Sails generate, why not? Let's call it a word. And it made the model and controller. And we can lift it. So now if I go to Word, I have an empty array. Look at that. It just did it for me. Awesome. So now we've got that, and then everything else you get to do yourself because it's not like Rails. It doesn't put you on Rails. It lets you do what you want. It gives you the ability to create like this. You can create that and easily store your data, retrieve your data. But then the rest is up to you. It basically builds your API for you. And then you get to build the rest. So, that's interesting. Let's see what happens if we go somewhere that doesn't exist. It gives us a nice 404 page. How awesome is that? That's kind of fishy. So we can look at our 404. Awesome ASCII art comment. So now we've got just plain old HTML that we can use to edit. And there's also this index page, right? So let's figure out where this guy is used and where this stuff comes from. So that's probably where this comes from. So here we go. Our default route, our just slash, right? That comes from this little entry right here. So home index. So if we look at our views, home index. So let's add another one. Let's call this not our comma. This is our awesome view. And we'll put it at awesome. And we'll just copy this and call it awesome. So now, theoretically, we open up slash awesome, and I have to restart it. And I open up awesome. Here we go. We've got this default page again because that's just what I copied. So now we can actually get started building our app. So we can Windows automatically puts in all this stuff for you. All this information here, it gets pulled in through something else. It gets pulled in through, basically it builds a header. I'm not sure where it does that. Let's see if we can figure it out in Rails. No. Oh. Let's read the documentation. Maybe I should have done that before I started this.
You have 1 minute.
Awesome.
You can do it.
We're getting really far, guys.
We've got lots of questions.
Awesome. You've got 5 minutes, starting in 30 seconds. Oh, and the neatest thing about this is, I can't really show this because I have no time, but it has built-in support for sockets, meaning like it does real-time stuff, right? It's Rails is supposed to be really great for building anything where it's real-time. You can build chat programs, you can build all sorts of awesome things with minimal amount of work because it's, to a large degree, convention over configuration. So yeah, question. You've got 5 minutes for questions.
Why did you pick Sales over the 20 million other frameworks?
I picked Rails because Rails is an MVC framework, so it'll be somewhat more familiar to some people, and it leads to a very well-structured application. Whereas a lot of other apps kind of break node convention. Specifically, I'm thinking of Meteor. Meteor is horrible at following node conventions, but it is real time. That's one of the big draws to it. So I wanted to highlight this. Next question. What's up, Mike?
Keegan, is Sales restful?
Yes, Sales is restful. Yeah.
Completely restful. He just builds it all out for you.
It's absolutely restful, and you don't have to do anything at all.
Yeah, you don't have to write any code at all, do you?
No, because why would you want to write code when you're a developer?
Yeah.
Well, it mentions that it supports Windows. Have you heard that it's as frustrating as Ruby on Rails on Windows, or does it seem
Node
like
is
it
a lot
actually?
better about being platform agnostic, because a lot of work went into libuv, which is just the underlying that does the input-output stuff, and it has decent Windows support, although you will have problems. There are some things that need to like compile native things, like one specific chunk of the Mongo driver wants to compile things, so you need like Visual Studio and a bunch of junk for that. So yeah, don't use Windows, use Linux. Awesome, nailed it. 1 minute to go.
Yeah, perfect time.